everybody, it's Amanda.
And it's Rick.
And it's Thursday night, and it's time for our weekly Bible study. I am going to share the link, as I always do. And Rick, I assume, is just sitting here waiting with bated breath to talk to you about something. Fuzz. You know, no matter how hard you try, you go live, and there's always something. Always something.
The fuzz.
This week it's me. Me and the fuzz.
Oh, the fuzz. The fuzz is here.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share this link. So if you guys have any questions this week, go ahead and put them in the chat and let us know.
Yes, we need questions.
And we
Topics.
Will, yep, we will.
You want to give the Lord some praise for something He's doing in your life? Well, this would be a pretty good time.
Sorry, it is late, and I am a little bit tired. Okay, but perfectly happy.
My wife has been out of the house for most of the day.
I have. It has been a busy and a good day.
Yeah.
You've enjoyed it.
10 o'clock, you come home for the day. Most people get in their pajamas, go to sleep. We do live events.
We do live events. That's the fun thing we do. Okay. Here we go. I am sharing, by the way, to Fundamental Faith. It's our Facebook group. So if you want to follow us there, you can certainly go there.
Are you on the right channel?
I am, for sure.
Okay.
Yep, and as soon as I share it here on Fundamental Faith, I will also share it on the Fundamental Home Facebook page, which is our regular Facebook page. So if you want to follow us and be notified, first of all, you could definitely subscribe. And secondly, you could also hit the bell and you should get notifications. But then in addition to that, sometimes YouTube isn't really good about letting people know when we're live. So you can follow us at Fundamental Faith or follow us on the Fundamental Home YouTube Facebook page, and then we'll notify you when we are live, like I'm doing right now. So I'm going to say, come hang out with us and chat about the Bible. Okay, so everybody will know that we are in fact here and can come join us. So I'm going to share that both places, and we are ready. Like I said, if you have just showed up, let us know if you have a topic that you'd like to talk about tonight, and we will make sure that we discuss your topic. All right.
Let me think. What did we talk about last week?
Friendships. Do you remember? We talked about friendships.
You're being vague. Let's talk about it. What else?
Not being a doormat.
I remember that. I remember that. Okay. We talked about something else too. There was something. What did we begin with?
I think,
we talked about baptism. Yes,
somebody asked us about baptism last week. So Shauna said, "Rick, don't tap the watermelon." You were very popular on the grocery haul. I don't know if you saw the comments.
Oh yeah, I looked at a few of them,
and then you felt good about yourself.
There are a lot of watermelon tappers out there.
And I think there are an equal number of people who look at the watermelon golden spot to find the appropriate watermelon.
They were humoring you. They didn't want you to feel bad.
No.
They're all tappers.
Shauna said, yeah, apparently everybody loves it. Shauna said if it taps back, just stop and run. Stop, drop, and run. Oh, man.
But you know
what?
what?
They liked your watermelon jokes.
In all honesty, I'm not going to tear you up or tear you down. The yellow spot and all that kind of stuff. That's true. That's true.
It is.
Yeah, I know it is. I know it is. But for my experience, I've met more tappers than spot searchers.
I think people know about the tap, but they don't know about the golden spot.
I know, but for every person looking for the golden spot, you've got about 4 or 5 tappers. I think the tappers outnumber you.
They might outnumber, but that's just because they aren't aware of the golden spot. I'm trying to raise awareness.
Maybe join up, be a tapper.
Sarah said she just liked our page and was going to message us to see if we were doing our Bible event. We are, but we are waiting for questions.
Yeah.
She said otherwise it's all Rickified. That's right, Shauna. Exactly. Yes, but it has to be the right shade. It just means that it's been there long enough and it's getting sugary and sweet. That's exactly why you look for the golden spot. I'm telling you. I know what I'm talking about. They always ask me to pick the watermelons. Don't you? You do.
Yeah.
He always asks me to pick the watermelon because I always pick a good one.
I don't want the blame.
Pick a good one.
You know, this is a Bible study, so it's feels
Yes.
weird to go on and on about a watermelon.
Well, it's Bible
But-
Q&A.
But did you ever notice in
We should talk about marriage. You know what I'm saying?
in our lifetime, I'm not talking about people that grow their own watermelon. I'm just talking about watermelon in general.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the grocery store and you get a watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, you would go and you'd get the big, long, seeded watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
And then about, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years ago, the seeded ones began popping up.
Seedless.
Seedless. The seedless ones began popping up. They look like little basketballs.
Talking
you know what I
about
mean?
watermelon because he hasn't got off the subject yet.
Well, we're waiting for a comment. Or
Please give us a
Bible,
question.
You give us a Bible
Give us a
question.
Bible question, please.
My point. I'll jump to the point that I was getting at.
Okay.
In the last 10 or so years, you'd go to a grocery store and you'd see lots and lots of bins of the big seeded watermelons and only a few of the seedless.
Mm-hmm.
It has turned. For some reason or other, it has turned. You have the opposite now. You have lots of bins of the seedless watermelon, but only maybe a bin or two.
Of the seeded.
And you really have to hunt them down.
Have you had a yellow watermelon?
I actually, if a yellow watermelon is actually good,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I mean good, I mean you pick it at a good ripe stage,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best. I love a yellow watermelon. It just tastes awesome. You didn't see that coming, did you?
Melissa said she's allergic to watermelon, and Shauna says her mom is she can't have melons at all.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Sarah said it's not a question.
Please give us something
But
in the Bible.
but could you pray for her sister Brittany, who was in a car accident
Oh, sure.
this past week and who is currently in ICU?
Yes.
So I will do that. Melissa has a question. How did I know she would come prepared with a question? She said, "Why do you just read the King James?" We have talked about this before. I mean, technically it's not like a Bible question, but I don't have a problem answering it. There's a few different reasons that we've talked about. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
Well, I mean, you can get, you can give a lot more details if you want. I'll just give general answers because I'm falling asleep here. But, I think many years ago, before I got saved, I was given a copy of the NIV. I never really bring that up because I never read it. I had it, but I never read it. I didn't start reading the Bible until I got saved, and at that time I had a KJV, a King James. You gave it to me.
I think I gave you the NIV too.
You did, and actually I still have it somewhere just because I'm nostalgic, But I never actually read it. But the thing is that years later, the NIV, there are verses that are left out. There are verses that they word it in such a way that it takes away from the deity of Jesus Christ and such. And it's like I'm picking on the NIV. Many other versions of the Bible. One of my biggest kind of, I don't like it, and I brought this up before, is that, you go to the Christian bookstore, any Christian bookstore, and you have one little rack of King James, versions.
That's not entirely true, Melissa. We'll talk to you about that in a second. Go ahead.
Okay. You go to the Christian bookstore and you have one little section of King James, and then you have a lot of other versions of the Bible. In almost every other version of the Bible, there's a little foreword written from a preacher or something or other, and there's some TV author type, big name preacher who's got his name all over it, and it's almost like it's his, and he's like the advertiser, getting his little piece or cut of the action. Where the King James folk, you print that, no one gets rich off of that. My whole point of saying all this, I don't want to just ramble, but the idea is that A lot of these versions of the Bible, it's like when McDonald's comes out with a new hamburger, or Pepsi or Mountain Dew comes out with a new flavor. It's a money thing. You know, let's get a new version of the Bible. Let's get a new version of the Bible. Let's get that preacher who wrote that book and tie him to this, and you know, we'll sell this thing like hotcakes. We'll sell it. We'll make money. And it's a marketing thing, and I just absolutely hate that. And that's the kind of thing that caused Jesus to flip over tables. You know, it's making money off of God and His Word, and that just kind of burns my butter. You know, I'm sorry. You go ahead. I know you have something smart to say.
I'm going to address the textual issue. So verses that are left out aren't left out because they're the oldest and most reliable transcripts. And frankly, I think that makes sense when you look at the verses that they leave out. Like the one that, you know, I think is that we talk about most commonly is the one in Acts where they leave out the fact that you have to accept Christ before you're baptized. Mm-hmm. And that's an important verse doctrinally.
Right.
And I'll tell you exactly why it's left out. Because the root text that they use. So there's two different texts, Greek texts, that they usually use. There's the Textus Receptus and the Textus Vaticanus. Mm-hmm. Okay? The Textus Receptus is the basis for the King James, and the Textus Vaticanus is the base for a lot of other versions. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of other versions, including the NIV. And guess who owns the Textus Vaticanus, or who is the authority over the Textus Vaticanus to decide what is the oldest and most reliable scriptures.
The name is a hint.
It would be the Catholic Church. Yeah. So, and of course, who's over that? The popes, and exactly. So that is why. And if you think about Catholic doctrine and how they have their, I forget what they're called because my brain is going, all those things that they have to do, including the baptism and the sacraments, all the different things that they have to do, one of which is baptism. And the way that their faith is set up is that the baptism outranks other things. Do you know what I'm saying? So for them, it's not to go get baptized is what you're supposed to be doing. It has nothing to do with that faith basis. So when you look at the verses that come out, you can see why it makes sense. Excuse me. No, it's called Textus Vaticanus. You can call it Codex Vaticanus. It's the same thing. But it's the whole goal is that when you know where it's connected and you know what verses are coming out and what those verses that are coming out say, you can kind of see how there might be a little bit of an issue with that. You know what I mean? So we would prefer the Textus Receptus personally. And that's just how we feel about it. I mean, I guess the question was, why do we read the King James? And there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of layers. But that's kind of the root of it in terms of the text. And I'll also say too, if you understand how they chose the passages to go in those different texts that they used, you know, there's a difference of opinion as to which ones were more important, and we could go on and on about that. I feel like that would be like a really in-depth conversation. I don't know if y'all are ready for all that.
No.
I feel like we covered the basics of what the issue is with that in terms of the backup text.
But you're so smart.
Thank you.
I love you.
I try.
But
no, I mean really, honestly,
no,
you know, what is it? What is the actual term? It's just deciding what text you're reading is an important consideration.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know, and I'll be honest with you. Many times I'll just take a practical stand.
Yeah, my practical thing is based on the. That's not what it is, Miss Mockery tonight. But and by the way, Mos is my friend. If you don't know, so I can tease her like that.
I mean, the reason that I don't personally come out on YouTube, Instagram, or something talking about any one denomination that we would be a part of ever is really because when I tell people about Christ and urge them to be saved, it's happened before, and it makes me cringe. Where people have thought in the past that I wasn't trying to tell them about Christ so they could get saved. They thought I was just trying to push a denomination on them,
Mm-hmm.
of what, anyway, you can pick one. And I don't like that, because that's not the Christian's motivation. You want to give them Christ so they can be saved, so they can go to heaven. So I stray away from giving out denominations.
Mm-hmm. And for the same reason, we would stray away
Well,
from encouraging Bible.
That's my point. In the same way, this is my point. This is where it gets to the Bible. There are so many versions of the Bible.
Yeah.
And like I said, a lot of them are for money-making purposes. I mean, we got to be wise here. People trying to make money off the Bible, they're a bunch of scoundrels, really. But let me say, you tell somebody, a new believer. I was a new believer 13 years ago. Go get yourself a Bible. So someone who has no idea about the Bible, they just say, okay, I'll go to the Christian bookstore. And they go in and say, I'm going to get a Bible. And they start walking around. And there's all these different versions of the Bible. Just that word version gives me this idea that, it's not just one God's word. There's many good words that God wrote, and it just adds confusion, forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
And Satan is the author of confusion. And I think it has caused many people over the years to doubt God's word. You go into a bookstore and there's all these different kinds of Bibles. And like I said, for practical purposes alone, I think you should stand on one version and just run with it. And the version that I've chosen and you've chosen is the King James. Many times in conversations, you're very good at that, or very diligent at pulling up the Greek, the Hebrew, and what those words mean. Because what it really is, I mean, yes, I'm reading the King James, but I don't take that extreme point of view that some take, that this is an inspired, that the text, that the version, the translation is inspired.
Mm-hmm.
What's inspired is the original language, the
Correct.
Hebrew and the Greek.
Correct.
What I hold in my hand is an English translation of the Hebrew and the Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have an issue or something comes up in this translation, then you look back in the original Hebrew and Greek and find out what this was talking about.
And I want to say, too, we don't take the stand, as some do, like Rick said, that some people think that the King James is perfect.
Right.
And we do not take that stand.
It's a translation.
It's certainly not. The original had the Apocrypha in it.
Yeah.
That's not it. Our stand is that we think it is the best translation. We appreciate that it is not owned by anyone, so it cannot be changed, as other versions are owned by people and can be changed and are often changed. NIV, I always use an example that's owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is definitely not a Christian. And so he has the power to do whatever he wants. And of course, there's other versions that are owned by different denominational groups. And, so we prefer to stay away from that. So that is our favorite and best choice in terms of which version we prefer. But again, as Rick said, going back to the Greek and Hebrew is our favorite. And so we actually spend time studying that and trying to learn some things about that. We're certainly not scholars by any means, but I mean, we're trying. And trying to do our best to learn about those things. And I think that if you really want to know what the Bible has to say, it's really great to do. Am I glad? I'm always glad you show up. So all of that to say that's why it's our preference. But again, we don't say everyone has to have this version, and if you're looking at another version, then it's wickedness. It's not at all what we're saying.
No, I don't. I don't do the have tos. I don't do the have to when it comes to music. I don't do the have to when it comes to anything. I do the have to when it comes to receiving Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and I do the have to when I point to people that He's all you need. There are people who will say you need Christ in a baptism, and I'm very firm in saying no, that's not true. There's people that say you need Christ in this and Christ in that. And I am very, no, you just need the Lord. But then it comes to other things, that are, I'm not as I don't know a good word, pushy, not pushy,
Firm.
firm, I guess, in that. I read the King James. I plan to keep reading the King James. If you don't read the King James, I mean, that's fine. It's between you and the Lord, and okay.
Hmm.
I don't call it the King James Bible like many do. I don't call it the King James version. Sometimes I like to just call it the King James translation because that's what it is. It's an English translation of the original language, Hebrew and Greek, and that's the one I choose because I like to keep things as simple as possible.
Okay, so there's the answer to that question. Go ahead, give us another one. So, let us know if you have any other questions that have anything to do with the Bible, and we will try our best to answer them. I did get the prayer request, by the way. Carrie said that she is sick, and extremely sick is the word she used, and she asked if you'd pray for her. Jessica said she'd like to ask for prayers for the health of her dog, Bromelia, who is very sick. So, and we have no problem praying for animals. I think the Lord definitely hears our prayers when we pray for our animals. We've prayed for ours many times. So, I mean, in a way, I suppose the Lord calls us His children. You know how we feel about our pets, that sometimes they are like our children. Like she even said they're a member of our family. And I feel like, the Lord, I'm sure He doesn't see us exactly as pets, but I'm sure that He understands that we see our pets as family, and because He cares for us, He's even more caring towards them. So, anyway, Melissa said you can pray for her daughter's toe. They have to go back to a specialist. Did she break her ankle or break her foot? And her name is Jade.
She might need surgery.
Exactly. Does care about the animals. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Carrie. By the way, if we could also mention, Ricky is right now in the ER. She broke her big toe, broke it clean off, and shattered into the joint. Oh my word. Okay. Yeah, Ricky's in the ER right now. He's been sick for a few days, and they do have a nurse at the camp, and she's been watching him, but they feel that he's at the point he needs to go to the ER. So we have no word on what's happening with him. We just know right before we got on, he was heading out. So if you guys would pray for him too. Shania said she'd like to know about forbidden food other than alcohol. What would you like to know about forbidden food? What exactly can I help you with?
You're the food person. Food in the Bible.
I know, right? It is scary, but it's not too much. Let's see. What do you mean for all of y'all? Let me know. Thank you, Shauna. I appreciate that. Shauna also asks, what are our ideas and beliefs about the new world after the rapture? That's you. I can do the food. You can do the rapture.
You mean the world, things that are going to happen on the earth after the rapture,
or like the new heaven and the new earth?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You were referring to the new heaven and new earth, and that's beyond everything. That's after the Lord actually comes back.
Or like what's going to be happening here
the
after
rapture,
the Christians are raptured away.
The rapture is when the Christians are called up.
Mm-hmm.
I guess people call it the second coming of Christ, but really the second coming of Christ is a series of events, because the rapture is when the Christians are called up, and then the second coming is when Christ actually comes down, and that's after the Antichrist takes time and all.
Looks like we've paused.
That is a great shot. Are we still on?
I don't know.
Refresh us.
Let's see. I'm refreshing here.
Oof.
Can you guys still hear us? Let us know if you can still hear us. It looks like the video is paused. You hear us. Of course you do, because
but
that will be our beautiful screenshot. Okay.
Well, let's do part 2.
Yep, we might have to take it out and reload it if it stays frozen.
Yeah.
And it looks like it is. All right. So we're going to go ahead and end this live event and start another live event where we will talk about apparently the the rapture, and then we will go on to the food question if Shania, if you want to clarify what exactly you want us to talk about. So